Andrew Tate's definition of an alpha is completely wrong, by the way. And I wish Andrew Tate read some books. India is a high rank pressure environment. Everything in our society is a rank game, right? We look at somebody saying no to us for anything, for an appraisal, for funding, as a threat to ourselves because we're socially unsafe. There are too many harsh realities of the world, like truths, scientific truths that if you say in public, you'll get belted. It's very easy to offend Indians because they know that Indians will respond. A company that operates on social defeat principles is biologically destined for toxicity. It's not bad thoughts that lead to bad mood. It's bad mood that leads to bad thoughts. A point of a manager in any pod at any part of our company is the serotonergic balancer. There were periods in my life where if you had hired me and I worked in a company, I would have been disastrous for the company. Awesome. I wasn't planning to do these online because these are secret katas, and the reason I don't want to do secret katas online is because there are too many harsh realities of the world, like truths, scientific truths that if you say in public, you'll get belted, right? And literally, like, people would get offended and stuff like that. So I made this deck for the internal team, for some of our core members. It's called the Lightning Core in our company, which is about 60, 70 people. And I really didn't want to make a video about this, but Sagar and Shreyans from my team said you should do it. You should just do just the first one and see what happens. So if I get belted, it's their fault. But I think it is valuable because I think the only way to become very good at leadership is to control your own neurotransmitter and hormone profile and also manage that of other people. Serotonin is the first episode on this, and for the other 4, I might not ever put them online. We'll see. How many of you have had depression? Okay, it's like 5, 6 people. Cool. Today I want to learn the biochemical basis of depression. Okay? Lessons from antidepressant research work, and there's a lot of lessons for us here, and takeaways for business. Because I think it's important for everybody to understand what's going on in your own bodies, right? Next slide. Disclaimer, I am not a doctor. Okay? But everything in this deck is doctor and licensed therapist validated. I wouldn't say anything online that's not validated. Any research that I put out is peer-reviewed studies or high-quality research, and I've cited them. I'll put the links in the description for the people on YouTube as well. But again, we're looking at more business insights from this, right? Next slide. How many of you have heard of the theory that low serotonin leads to depression? A lot of people have putting their hands up. How many of you have heard of the fact that serotonin is the happiness chemical? A lot more people have put their hands up. Firstly, if you read the actual science, the low serotonin equal to depression model is too simple. Of course, serotonin plays a role in depression, but it's far too simple and often wrong. Okay? And there's, like, I'll link you to this, but there's a nice little meta review of all the studies on how serotonin and its impact on depression, what serotonin's impact on depression is, and it's more complicated than you think it is. Next slide. Serotonin is more accurately described, the best way to think about it, is actually the social safety chemical. When you're high serotonin, you feel socially safe. Okay? And some people instinctively know this. When you're low serotonin, you feel socially unsafe. Next slide. Okay? In neuroscience, if you want to give an animal depression, there's a very easy way to do it, which is called social defeat stress. Okay? It's a widely used animal model because it reliably produces depression-like patterns. Put an animal in a hopeless situation, put a rat in a hopeless situation, keep putting it under, there's something called water restraint stress. You just put animal under a lot of stress, right? Or a hopeless situation. More than stress, if the animal is even allowed to crawl out a little bit, it doesn't get depression. But the animal feels it's hopeless, that goes into depression. Okay? Chronic stress can reshape your serotonergic circuits. And stress has a very specific definition here, is something that you cannot overcome. It's not hard work. Indians have equated stress to hard work. Oh, it's making me work hard. That's not stress. Stress is something you cannot reliably overcome, or a social situation where you cannot reliably get any status in that social situation. Okay? Next slide. Depression is a biopsychosocial disease. What I mean by that is, it is something that happens to humans, especially susceptible humans, where your genes Of course, your genes play a part in how quickly you get depression and how much you get depression and how quickly you bounce back. But it's biopsychosocial because it's a response to the environment. If your environment sucks and is very against you, you will reliably get depression. Okay? But if you have great genes, maybe it will take longer. Maybe you tank that impact a little more. Okay? And we all know this instinctively. When you see good food after some time, don't some of you salivate? Mouth starts watering a little bit. So the environment often influences our hormones and neurotransmitters. It's the same with our mood. Your environment affects your mood. Okay? So you absolutely can have depression as a response to the environment. Okay? Remember, I'm not a doctor, but this is like basic science. Next slide. Translating to humans very carefully, when your brain learns I'm losing in a status game, okay, it starts scanning for danger. So, I told you serotonin is a social safety molecule. When you don't have serotonin, and serotonin is one of the parts of the system that affect this, you feel socially unsafe. Start, ambiguous messages start feeling insulting. What I mean by that is, your shoes are dirty. You start thinking this person is making a judgment about me. Whereas if you had high serotonin, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, and you move on. Feedback feels like humiliation, right? Silence feels like rejection. Somebody's not talking to me. And some of you have faced this in your relationships, right? Person's not talking to me. Are they rejecting me? Somebody else winning hurts worse than it should. This is the brain under chronic rank pressure. So in a social situation, we have a sense of whether we feel safe or not with the people around us. If we don't feel safe, if society is pushing you down, right? And sometimes we have this, society suppresses you, pushes you down. As chronic rank pressure, the brain starts changing and you start losing, your serotonergic systems in the brain start shutting down. Next slide. Chronic social defeat induces sustained changes in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. The PFC, which is the prefrontal cortex, is responsible for impulse control, executive control. You're less emotional when the PFC is active, okay? And emotional regulation. You don't do stupid things, right? You're controlled about your emotions. While the amygdala, which is a different part of the brain, serves as the brain's threat detection center. It's highly emotional, okay? Under conditions of social defeat, the PFC atrophies, it becomes smaller, it physically becomes smaller, okay? It loses volume, it loses connectivity, while the amygdala becomes hyperactive and engaged. Next slide. And enlarged, sorry. India, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of scholars, is a high rank pressure environment. Do you agree? Everything in our society is a rank game, right? Comparative exams. In a comparative exam, one person wins, few people win, lots of people lose. Yes or no? There's an order, there's a stack order. Constant comparisons. Sharma ji ka beta dekh lo. Social media algorithm driven comparisons. In your feed, you're always seeing billionaires and trillionaires and whatnot. And you're like, you're only seeing successful people on your feed, right? Limited seats for everything. Everything has limited seats, correct? From the comparative exams to the concert, everything has limited seats. Next slide. So therefore, the big problem with India, and something we learned when creating content a long time ago, because they're under chronic rank pressure and the serotonin systems are not working as expected, this manifests as, I told you, they're not socially safe. Most people are not socially safe. They're not feeling socially safe. They get offended. Every message is an insulting message. Oh, you used a picture of, some person very important in my community. I'm going to get offended. I'm going to attack you. Oh, you put up a picture of this. I'll attack you. And you see this online a lot, right? It's very easy to offend Indians. Right? On Twitter, you can see this. A lot of literal people across the world are just racist to Indians and making a lot of ad money because they know that Indians will respond. But there are lots of other countries where if you're racist to them, they just don't even respond online. Right? Then no one's going to debate it. But Indians will be like, oh, talking about me, and go in. It's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. RSD involves an extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived rejection or criticism. The downregulation of the serotonin transporter in the prefrontal serotonergic system has been linked to anxiety-like behaviors that mirror RSD. Indians don't like rejection. And the difference between Indians and people in the US is, in the US, if you reject somebody, they are less likely to take offense. In India, anyone you reject, they will take offense. Best example of this is in venture capital. You know what VC's job is? Is to say no all the time. Paisa de do, please, I want to raise 1 million. VC says no. And 99% of why they're saying no is because they don't believe in you. They don't believe you're a superstar who will end up making them 10x their money. But you know how VCs in India deliver it? Sorry, we are wrong sometimes. Don't feel bad. Don't feel offended. And that's because the founders in India get offended. Because we look at somebody saying no to us for anything, for an appraisal, for funding, for anything. We take somebody saying no to us as a threat to ourselves because we're socially unsafe. We feel socially unsafe. And I always tell this in EOS, right? Like, one of the expectations I want everyone to have when you're doing appraisal conversations is to always start with this, which is saying a no to you for this appraisal doesn't mean your value is not that much. It has nothing to do with you. Don't take it to your own self-worth and start judging yourself about this. This is a business decision. We have a budget for this. Does this fit inside the budget? Okay, then we make it work. Otherwise, no. But you don't take it personally, because Indians take everything personally. Okay, and that's why, one of the things that the reasons I'm doing this for our company, so that everyone gets immune to this, knows what the body is doing, knows what the brain is doing. Rejection is never personal. Next slide. Sometimes it is, but not here. Social defeat stress is infectious. You all instinctively know this, right? If you hang out with 5 people with bad mood and who are constantly criticizing everything, you'll become like them. You know this instinctively. It's pretty obvious, right? If everyone's like if the environment you're entering is toxic, you are going to end up becoming toxic if you stay there long enough. Reddit's a very good example of this. A lot of people who come in who are mildly dissatisfied with society, feeling a little bit of suppression, will go there, and then because Reddit, like everybody who's sat there for a very long period of time is all feeling socially suppressed, you become like that. So you're not clearly thinking anymore, right? You have entered a society where just to feel social safety in that society, you're saying the rest of society is not socially safe for you. You're changing the way your brain works. And it's like a mind, it's like a mental, it's like going down the toilet for your brain. Whatever the equivalent of that is. Next slide. Now, coming to SSRIs. Do you guys know what SSRIs are? SSRIs are a type of drug that, in a nutshell, they jam serotonin in your synapses, right? They make sure that you feel happier over time. They change the way your brain works. And if you see, the minute you start giving people SSRIs, their threat reactivity and negative bias reduce. Many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, because I had some health issues, physical health issues, my mental health started tanking because of that, and I was given antidepressants for a period of time. And I just started noticing all sorts of random things, which is that any situation that should have irritated me no longer irritated me. I was just calmer. It's not that I was happier or sad. I thought I'll be very happy and giggling and dancing around. That never happened. And that's what people say about SSRIs, right? Oh, that you become like this thing. But actually, I felt more like a zombie, less reactive to anything. Someone tried to offend me, it wouldn't even register in my brain that this person is trying to offend me. And I had a friend in college called Rushil who once told me this, that it's not bad thoughts that lead to bad mood. It's bad mood that leads to bad thoughts. It's a very profound thing that he told me in college, and I was just sitting there and I was like, that's actually true, right? Actually, it's bidirectional. But if you give people SSRIs, it normalizes the amygdala's hyperactivity. I told you the amygdala, the threat center, starts beating very hard, right? It slows down when you give people SSRIs. Next slide. Another example of this is MDMA. And MDMA is a very good case study, which is that the minute you give people MDMA, they all feel socially safe. Now, MDMA works on multiple things. It works on serotonin. It also works on oxytocin. So it's multiple effects. It's too simplistic to say it's the serotonin part of it is what creates social safety. But you'll see a bunch of people on MDMA, like we've seen videos of it, where people are just very nice to each other. For that short period of time, they're okay with being vulnerable. The word is vulnerable. Most of us are afraid of being vulnerable with each other. But these people are okay with being vulnerable with each other. They're not worried about judgment anymore. They're not worried about being offended anymore. Next slide. But 3 days after And it's called the 3-day blues or the Tuesday blues, right? Which is that suddenly they start feeling this temporary depression. Everything starts offending them. They just feel cruddy, right? Everything, they just feel irritable. It's very easy to get them to shout. Next slide. Now, I told you that depression is a biosocial disease. I didn't tell you this. I'm not a doctor, but medicine tells us this. But let's study how serotonin works in animals. And this you really can't replicate in human beings because it would violate all sorts of ethics. And that's why the secret katas are secret katas. But there are studies done on vervet monkeys. It's a type of monkey where when a male vervet monkey ascends to the alpha position, you all know what an alpha is, right? You've all watched Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's definition of an alpha is completely wrong, by the way. But when a male vervet monkey ascends to the alpha position, and I wish Andrew Tate read books, but the minute the male vervet monkey ascends to the alpha position, his whole blood serotonin levels increase by approximately 50%. I told you, our neurotransmitters and our hormones react to our environment. We all think, oh, why don't I have this, why don't I have that? Maybe your environment sucks. Maybe you're not in the right environment. If the alpha loses this position, his serotonin levels drop back to baseline. So, when you become alpha in some monkey environment, your serotonin goes up, you're less irritable, generally your mood is better, and when you lose that position, again it goes back to baseline. Very interesting statistic, no? Because what they did was they literally took the monkey, put him out of an alpha position, a different alpha rose, this person's position dropped, put the person back, put the monkey back. The way they did the result was very cool. And I wish I could read out the entire thing for you because there's a drug called cyproheptadine which reduces blood serotonin levels. The minute you give that, they lose alpha position. It's a very interesting, kind of study. The alpha position signified by less aggressive behavior, but more collaborative and assertive behavior. Here's the thing I want to tell you. In monkeys, all sorts of studies on serotonin, the more you increase serotonin function of a monkey, the more likely they are to collaborate. It's not aggression. The alpha male that you think in your heads or the alpha of anything that you think in your heads is an aggressive. It's not that. They all become extraordinarily collaborative. They start affiliating. Okay? And it's also a little bit of an assertive behavior. And this is a study by McGuire and Rayleigh. I'll link it in the description to people watching it online so you can read the entire thing. I want you to read the entire thing, not just the abstract, but the rest as well. Next slide. Low serotonin, on the other hand, is associated with impulsive aggression, risk-taking, hyper-reactivity, and negative risk-taking, not the kind of calculated risk-taking, right? Just, I will go do adventure sports, that type. Subordinates, which is not the alpha, but like below the alpha, who try to fight their way up, display this profile. Sometimes to try to get to the alpha position, you try to fight your way up, right? If they don't have the blood serotonin levels that match, they become volatile and violent. While they might win in a physical fight, because physical fights will pick up something randomly and might go in the other one's eye and maybe might win by luck. They often fail to hold stable power because they cannot build the necessary alliances to rule. There are lots of people, for example, who leave our company and say, I will build my own company. But the classic mistake they do is they pick a fight with everybody. Whereas success comes from collaboration. It's almost like they missed the memo of why most companies are successful. Look at Sam Altman, right? He's made literally every company in the US, every tech company in the US in some way collaborate with him. Right? So the best out there are collaborating all the time. These rogues are the tyrants or the rogues who rule by fear and eventually overthrown by a coalition of calmer, more cooperative males. Again, this is McGuire and Rayleigh with this study. Next slide. Sapolsky, which is a very different researcher, had an opinion of something called type A baboons. Type A baboons are those that saw threats everywhere. Even the small things they thought this is a threat. Okay? Couldn't distinguish between a major rival and a minor annoyance. And lacked social outlets. They had the worst psychological profiles regardless of their rank. In contrast, the alphas ignored minor provocations. Right? People say something bad about you, small things. Alphas are like, I don't care. Unless it's a serious threat, they stop caring about these small things and focused on real threats. Next slide. Now, what we saw with, this is a very different study, okay? What we see with juvenile rhesus monkeys, a very different type of monkey. Now, I just want to be very clear that monkey studies don't always translate 1:1 to humans, but it's a reasonably good pattern. The minute you give juvenile rhesus monkeys fluoxetine, which is a type of antidepressant, they started grooming each other more. You know what grooming is? A monkey going to another monkey's hair and scratch. Like just, affiliative, collaborative behaviors. It's so repeatable. Next slide. Now, why do we care about any of this? We don't care about any of this. We care about what we can take away for leadership. Okay? The entire idea with what we want to do is we want to build an ecosystem that is in general, high serotonin. And most, services companies, especially in India, are always quite the opposite. They're ruled by fear. And what we want to create is an environment where you're safe and respected here. And to do that, first, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce social threat, lower defensiveness, increase collaboration. We want everyone to collaborate, not to fight. And companies eventually get to places where people start fighting with each other a little bit. It hasn't happened in NEOS, but it will happen as we scale, unless we solve it today. And I'll tell you the golden rules here. Praise in public, correct in private. Right? And what I mean by private and public are public is this. Private is small groups, 2 or 3 people, ideally 1 person. Critique the work, not the identity. I'm very famous for looking at something and saying this is trash. But I'm never attacking the person. I'm never saying you are trash. So this work is garbage. This video sucks. That's okay. Critique the work, not the identity of the person. Lead with alignment before disagreeing. Even if I disagree with you, I won't say, hey, that's stupid, it's a trash idea. Instead, I'll be like, you're right. I agree with your line of thinking, but here's the 3 things that you're missing. So I'm taking what you have in account. So basically taking the extra time to explain why you're making a decision. Make evaluation criteria defined. There's something in companies called secret evaluation. Sometimes I don't like when people randomly get promoted. Oh, you did well this week, I'm going to promote you. We should never do that. It should be very clear how a person can work towards a promotion in everything that we do, right? Especially on the services side of what we do, right? On the smaller teams, maybe promotions might not be a thing yet. Blameless postmortems. I told you, we can't look at each other and say, it's because of you we failed, it's because of you we failed. Why did we fail at a specific project? What can we take away from it? What can we learn? How can we get better without blaming any specific person? Now, if a person is to blame, if a person is horrible at it, let the person go. Fire the person. But there's no point blaming a person after it's failed. Just let the person go. And protect status while changing behavior. Right? We try not to pull each other down. Try not to make it a rank environment, right? Avoid our best to make it a competitive exam inside the company while still running the company well. Next slide. Okay. High serotonin levels are associated with reduced fear and increased confidence in calculated risk taking. The low serotonin ones still take risks, but it's like, jumping off a cliff type of risk. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from failure, is actually very dependent on your serotonin level. So it's essentially the ability of the serotonergic system to re-regulate the amygdala after a setback. Stop overthinking why you failed. Stop thinking, oh, I'm a failure, this, that, get into that mode. But get out and say, okay, I'll do it again. I'll try again. Next slide. Okay. And I want to tell you how I do this, and I try to generalize it for entrepreneurs. I do something called simulation, which is I vividly imagine the worst case scenario for everything that we're doing here. Going bankrupt, everything getting automated, public humiliation, whatever it is. I visualize all of it. Then there's something called amygdala habituation. By voluntarily exposing the brain to this simulated threat in controlled environment, the amygdala's response is dampened, habituation. The monster becomes known. I'll give you a very good example of this happening. For a lot of successful people, this happens, okay? And in India especially, because of legal threats. The first time you ever got a legal threat, you're like shitting your pants. Oh, no, whatever. And imagine the worst case scenario, imagine yourself in jail and all that. But the more it happens, the more you get habituated with it. Right? For you right now, it's like, oh, I have to go to court for summons or whatever. But like if you meet a lot of experienced entrepreneurs, they'll have hundreds of cases on them. They're just habituated to it. They already know what the worst case is and they're willing to live with that worst case. Reframing. The entrepreneur realizes that they would survive the defeat. This reduces the fear of defeat, which is often more paralyzing than the defeat itself. What's the worst that can happen? Next is serotonin preservation. When the actual crisis hits, the brain is less likely to spiral into full-blown social defeat. Right? In YAS especially, we do a lot of simulation on what's the worst thing that can happen. Whether it be automation, this, that. I do it on purpose sometimes. To a point where I know if it actually happens, we were ready for it. And of course, this mirrors the CBT technique of decatastrophizing. Like you basically knock down a few points the worst case scenario in your head. You don't take it as seriously as other people do. For a lot of people, a lot of kids, they commit suicide after, they don't get into a specific college or they don't pass a specific test. You can decatastrophize it, which is, okay, so what? This is reframing in your head, right? I'll figure it out anyway. Next slide. The inner critic is essentially the internalized voice of social defeat, the Sharma ji ka beta mechanism running inside the entrepreneur's own head. Negative self-talk activates the same stress pathways as external verbal abuse. When you attack yourself in your own head, it's just as good as somebody else abusing you from outside. It keeps cortisol high and serotonin low. Entrepreneurs and even the top talent here must consciously separate from this voice. Techniques like referring to oneself in third person during stress, which is distant self-talk, like, oh Varun, you didn't do a very good job of this, you could have done this better. Creating that distance have been shown to reduce amygdala activation. This allows your prefrontal cortex to regain control, shifting the brain back to a challenge state rather than a threat state. Threat state is fight or flight. Challenge state is okay, controlled fight environment, controlled boxing match where I'm prepared or trained for it. Next slide. The goal here is to build a positive sum ecosystem. The problem with the competitive exam mindset is one person can be rank 1, the next will be rank 2 and so on and so forth, all the way till last rank. We've done this since we were in school, right? Rank system. Did your school marks ever matter? Did your rank in school, you had a class rank, right? Has it mattered? No. The goal here is to build a positive sum ecosystem by validating employees, which is constantly grooming them, creating psychological safety, which is reducing social defeat, trying to make sure people don't get into too many situations of social defeat here, and aligning incentives, which is coalition building, making sure that groups are very tight with each other. We do some activities that some of you might find it silly. Some of the activities we end up doing at YAS, sometimes we do some of the activities. Actually, even when somebody hosts a birthday party, we do the cake cutting and stuff like that. It's small things that we do. Some of you might find it silly, but it's actually very important for team bonding. Okay? And the point of a leader in any group, a point of a manager in any pod at any part of our company is the serotonergic balancer. Your job is to make sure that everyone has reasonably good mood, enough to collaborate. A company that operates on social defeat principles, okay, stack ranking, fear-based management, is biologically destined for toxicity. 99% of Indian companies, right? Because the managers have no official training on anything. Don't even understand how they don't even have enough awareness of how their mood works. And these companies also very poor innovation because they don't have the calculated risk-taking ability because their neurotransmitter profiles are in the shitters. A company that operates on these good serotonin principles, which is trust, safety, shared wins, while removing zero-sum players can win. Now, by the way, this is the ideal state. This is a dream state. This also requires you to have good talent that actually cares. Right? If somebody comes in, and by the way, one of the rules I really believe in is, if somebody has depression in the company, like active depression, typically they're not a very good fit for the company. They need to go out, get treatment and come back. Because like I said, they will make it worse for everybody else. Collaboration takes a hit. I told you, the higher serotonin, the more likely you collaborate. The lower serotonin, the more you feel all messages coming in are insulting. I won't collaborate. You create a less collaborative environment. It's not their fault. There were periods in my life where if you had hired me and I worked in a company, I would have been disastrous for the company. Right? So better for them to take care of themselves, treat it like, sick time off, finish, come back. And I think helping extremely low serotonin players, the rogues, like I told you, right? We told you about the rogues who fight their way up. Helping them move out from the company or seek treatment is key. Yeah, so helping some of these lower serotonin players, move out of the environment or seek treatment is key. And look, if it gets to a point with somebody that you can't work with them, they're not collaborative, or they don't have the skill, or whatever it is, it's better to move them out. Okay? If they have potential, keep them. If they have the right attitude, if they have the learning ability, keep them. But if they don't have any of that, it's better to move them out. Right? Because they're just going to make the environment more and more toxic, because the minute a person becomes non-collaborative, they're already exhibiting the symptoms of what we are talking about. Next slide. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye. And let's see how this first one, what the response is. Because I've been trying my best to try to improve my understanding of how I make decisions, how people make decisions. Actually, Jordan Peterson has this thing about the underlying current. He's like, in any conversation, it's not about the thing, especially in relationships, right? Couples relationships. It's never about the thing that's being discussed. The fight is never about the thing. The fight is always about the underlying emotion, attention, this, that. It's a different need that's being disguised in the fight for something else. But sometimes it's all boredom. Two people are fighting because they're bored. Could be because of many different things. But it's important for you to find the underlying current. So this came from there, which is that I want to understand what are the underlying currents of running a company, and it's a lot more emotional than people think it is. And if I learn more about it, it makes me a more efficient leader, right? Being aware is the first key to being, a better leader. And this is work I did for myself, and I'm just sharing with everybody. If it offends people online, then we might not do more of this. But if it's useful, then we'll find a gated way to do it with people who really care about learning this information. That's it for me. Bye.